Reformulations just suck. But unfortunately, that's just kind of how it goes. You can't control it. You can't control what these companies do. But there are some fragrances out there that are kind of aimed to go back to how that fragrance was before it was reformulated. And today we're going to be checking out Parfums Vintage Suave, which is their take on La Nuit de l'Homme, and more specifically, we're talking about the pre-reformulation version. So I've got a first formulation 4-digit batch code of La Nuit de l'Homme right here. You could tell that this is the first formulation, one, by the fact that it has a metal cap, and it's got a bigger atomizer there, it's metal, and also by the batch code on the bottom. If it is 4 digits, like so, that means it is the first formulation bottle, and that is what this Parfums Vintage fragrance is inspired by. I've also got a second formulation bottle right here, which I'll kind of briefly talk about in the video as well. If you want to get a first formulation bottle of La Nuit de l'Homme, it's going to cost you quite a bit, in the upper $150, sometimes even $200 range and beyond. They get very, very expensive. And it really begs the question if purchasing those older bottles of La Nuit de l'Homme is even worth it. And I've actually done a full video comparing all of the different formulations on my channel already that you can check out. But today is all about Parfums Vintage Suave. I'm going to compare this to the first formulation bottle and also my second formulation, and I'm just going to give you a full-on review. I've been wearing this fragrance a lot to fully test it out, especially here in the fall weather, and now I'm ready. So if that sounds interesting, first let me know down in the comments what you think of La Nuit de l'Homme, what you think of Parfums Vintage Suave, just all these fragrances. Tell me your thoughts on them down below, if you like them, if you don't. Second thing is, if you're new here to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also turn on post notifications and give this video a like. And now let's finally jump into the review. So when I first spray on Parfums Vintage Suave, what I get immediately in the opening is that famous cardamom note. That cardamom note gives it a nice spicy, sweet, and oriental smell. Immediately following that, you get a lot of lavender. And of course, lavender, you already know what that smells like. It gives it somewhat of a powdery and slightly sweet type of smell also. But most notably is the cardamom note. It really hits your nose. You smell it right away. It is strong. And honestly, La Nuit de l'Homme is a fragrance that really made the cardamom note popular, at least in designer fragrances and men's fragrances. A lot of people, when you hear people talk about La Nuit de l'Homme, you're going to be hearing them talk about the cardamom note. And that is kind of one of the main things that gets changed and kind of moved around in the more recent formulations of La Nuit de l'Homme. In the newer bottles or newer batches of La Nuit de l'Homme, that cardamom blast, that nice oriental spicy sweetness is toned down a little bit. They kind of bring it back so it's less sweet, it's less in your face. Whereas in the first formulation and even in the second formulation bottles, you get that cardamom and you get a lot of it. It's very sweet and is very strong, and yeah, you can just tell there's a difference. So Suave really captures that perfectly. I really do get a lot more cardamom from this than I do from the current formulation bottles of La Nuit de l'Homme, which I also do own a current formulation bottle of it in the 200 ml size. So yeah, very, very noticeable difference between this and the original. So there is a noticeable difference between this and the current batches of La Nuit de l'Homme, which is what you would get if you bought it from like a discounter or if you bought it from a department store. As this starts to dry down on your skin, you start to pick up on a lot of musk. So it's sweet, it's a little bit powdery, it's musky. You also get some vetiver, which gives it a nice sharp woodiness, which kind of makes it a little bit more masculine, and it kind of counterbalances the powderiness that you get from this fragrance. I feel like the woodiness in Suave is accentuated a little bit more than it is in La Nuit de l'Homme, both the current and the old formulations, which I don't mind. It does kind of give it a little bit more of a masculine edge, because if you really ask anyone if La Nuit de l'Homme is masculine, they're probably going to tell you no, because it is sweet and kind of powdery, and it doesn't really have like a strong masculine edge to it. But Suave kind of takes it in that direction just a little bit. But it doesn't stray that far at all from La Nuit de l'Homme. It still is pretty close. And honestly, if I was blindfolded and someone gave me Suave and someone gave me the first formulation of La Nuit de l'Homme or even the second formulation of La Nuit de l'Homme, I would be pretty hard pressed to tell them apart. And I will quickly touch on the second formulation just because I said I would. The first and second formulation are pretty minor in their differences. So if you are looking for an older batch of La Nuit de l'Homme, you can't find a first formulation, but you can find a second formulation, go for that one. It's still going to be great. The differences really aren't that much. Just the second formulation is toned back a little bit. They brought it back a little, but not nearly as much as the current formulations. So Suave still does get you very close to kind of those first two formulations, which are the most popular and the most sought after. And if you ask anyone who is super into La Nuit de l'Homme, after those first two formulations, it pretty much goes downhill from there. So let's go and talk about when you can wear Parfums Vintage Suave. This is definitely suited for fall and winter, just the cooler months in general. In terms of the type of situations, definitely a date fragrance. To me, La Nuit de l'Homme probably is one of the best date fragrances out there that you can purchase. The name La Nuit de l'Homme translates to something like the man of the night or something night. I don't speak French, so I don't know for sure, but it's something along those lines. And this fragrance really does smell like that. It smells like a guy who is dressed up. He's going out in the evening. He's going on a date. He's going to some sort of a little bit more formal event. That's really what this smells like. So yeah, it could work for, events as well in the evening. But to me, 100% best suited for dates, again, in my opinion. But you can wear it for a lot more. You can even just wear this fragrance casually during the day. That's what I've been doing since I've been testing it a lot, just wearing it throughout the day. Typically been going with 4 to 5 sprays. I tend to overspray sometimes just when I want to smell the fragrance more. You can really realistically go with like 2 or 3, and that'll be plenty with this scent because it does have pretty strong projection, but I do like to overspray sometimes just because I can. So yeah, if you have a date or any sort of event in the evening, this fragrance 100% is going to be catered to that. Despite the scent DNA being very popular, I still think it's one of the best date fragrances out there. We'll quickly go ahead and touch on the performance of this fragrance. Longevity on my skin, I've been getting on average about 8 hours, so it's been solid. And that compares about to what I get from La Nuit de l'Homme, both the older batches, and it gets pretty close to the newer batches. To be honest with you, La Nuit de l'Homme, the scent DNA, never was all that strong to begin with. People get these misconceptions. They think that they want to go for the older batches because they perform like a beast and they do all this crazy stuff, and the newer batches only last like 5 or 6, 7 hours. They want to get beast mode performance, and to be honest with you, La Nuit de l'Homme was never a beast mode fragrance. It's not that type of scent. I mean, if you smell this, you can kind of tell that's supposed to be a little bit more soft, stay close to your skin, but it does leave a nice trail. This isn't something that's going to fill a room. This isn't something that's going to last for 12 hours. That just isn't this type of fragrance, and you kind of have to respect that. So about 8 hours on average from this fragrance, and again, that's on par with what I get generally from La Nuit de l'Homme. I get from the new batches 6 to 7, which is pretty solid, and I'm not complaining. I don't get bad performance from any La Nuit de l'Homme. From the older batches, I get 8, pushing maybe 9, so it's kind of right around there in the middle. Projection, this fragrance does push out a good amount within the first hour, hour and a half, 2 hours of me spraying it, but then it will start to die down kind of into my more personal space. Not a skin scent, but it does lay closer to the skin than it does push out, which is fine for me because I do think this fragrance is best for intimate encounters, and in that type of situation, you don't want it to be projecting out a bunch and annoying the girl that you're with or anything. You want it to stay closer to the skin, so when she's close to you, it's not burning her nose out, because again, this fragrance is strong, not only just in the projection that I'm talking about, but also the scent itself. That cardamom note is no joke. It's strong. It will almost kind of burn your nose, especially if you smell it close. So if you're going to be wearing this in a close encounter, in a date, some sort of intimate setting, yeah, I would go with maybe 2 sprays max, maybe 3, maybe do your third one underneath your shirt, on your chest, or on the back of your neck or something. But I would say for that situation, 2 sprays is really all you're going to need. If you're going out somewhere and you want to project, you can go with 4, 5, 6 if you wanted to, but not for a date. I wouldn't do that. And while we're on it, we'll talk about compliments. This is going to be a great compliment getter. La Nuit de l'Homme is known for getting compliments. That's why it was hyped up so much back in the day, and even now it is still hyped up. So this is going to be a solid compliment getter. A lot of women are going to like this fragrance. That's just kind of how it is. This, isn't a overly masculine fragrance, so for the types of people out there who love really strong, masculine tobacco, whiskey, leather fragrances, this is not going to be that type of scent. It does lean a little bit more powdery, kind of not unisex, but it kind of goes in the direction of potentially being unisex if you looked at it that way. So not a full-on masculine scent, so not everyone's going to like it, but the majority of people out there are really going to like this scent. All right, man, I think that pretty much wraps up this video. That is my full thoughts on Parfums Vintage Suave. Again, let me know what you think of this one down in the comments. If you like it, if you think it's a good alternative to La Nuit de l'Homme. I definitely think it is. I think it gets very close to those older batches of La Nuit de l'Homme, which are hard to get. This fragrance is back in stock on Parfums Vintage website. It was out of stock for a long time. They couldn't get the proper ingredients to formulate this fragrance, so instead of reformulating it, they just cut off production until they could get it, but it is back in stock. I didn't have a chance to review it back when it first came out, so when I saw it was back in stock, I hit them up. They got me a bottle, and so I could test it, check it out, and review it, and again, I'm pretty impressed with it. So guys, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss when I post. And that's going to do it for me, guys. Have a great rest of your night. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.